Ally family. Welcome to this podcast with me and my wonderful co-host Regina Michelle, where we're talking about social work. Let's talk about social work. And we are both super excited today to bring you a topic that is definitely near and dear to our hearts and having the people that we serve to thrive. And before I get into it, I have you to introduce yourself, my wonderful co-host.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep,
Hi,
can hear you, sweetheart.
it's Regina, and I've been a social worker for over 20 years, and I am here to talk about financial literacy and just to learn today and to give my opinion about it.
All right, absolutely. And we're going to introduce our guest today, Miss Sandra from Lack to Legacy. Woohoo! We're super excited to have you here. I don't have any bell. Pretend like I'm shaking my pom poms, ladies. Woo! Welcome, Sandra.
Thank you, ladies, for having me. You know, it's always a pleasure and an honor, Danny, to spend time with you.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And
Thank
I am none other than Danny of Natural LID, also a social worker of 20 plus years. And I'm here to share my experience with you. And I'm just super excited about bringing things that enhance our community, right? To help our overall quality of life. I talk about that on my channel, but quality of life also includes managing our finances or looking to see how we can, what's the words I want to say, best invest our finances, right?
yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so today I'm super excited to bring a topic to you where we're gonna have a little chit chat about this conversation. First, full disclaimer: we are not financial advisors. We understand understand that, but just based on experience, and we're going to bring in our expert here in the area of wanting to share this information. Okay, so we're going to get right into it. So before we were talking off the podcast, I started off talking about, I don't know about you ladies, but finances and investing was a foreign term to me.
Right.
Um I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know nothing about when I first started having a job, investing. What's that? And
Right.
I'll tell you a funny story. I first got a job and this gentleman came in. I want to say this was late 90s, so not long ago, but long ago. He came in, he was talking to a group of us, and he said, I'm going to take your money. This is all I heard, right? I'm going
Mhm.
to take your money. I'm going to put it somewhere. You ain't going to see it. You can't have access to it until you're 59 and a half. And yeah. And so I'm sitting here looking at him like, uh-huh. And I say that because I was so naive, had no clue as to what it meant to the word investing or the idea you're supposed to put your money somewhere and leave it and you can't touch it until this certain age. And you're gonna do what with my money? Oh, okay. So let's talk about your experience. And speaking of which, this is April is Financial Literacy Month, right? So
Yes.
this is a good topic
Yes.
to talk about in this month. So, what has been your experience, lady? How was you first introduced to the idea of investing?
Me?
Huh,
Anybody?
anybody?
Yeah. You go. I'll go after you.
I would say with my mother. My mother started me saving money like in the seventh grade.
Okay,
She got me a checking account. The
okay.
minors checking it was savings account.
Hmm.
And I thought it was so fun, you guys. Cause she would give me $10 and I would put my $10 a month. And you all know how the the savings book look when you put $10 and add more. And it was just so fun to me to see my money grow. So every time the money would double, that would excite me. So she started me out with my savings account and I just started from there with learning from her. And then, of course, working a job, as Danny said, with the pensions and the retirements and the 401k. It just went from there.
Okay, all right. So you
And
started off with
my
your
story,
savings.
Yeah, you were fortunate. My story doesn't start like that. There was no money to manage at my house. That was probably my first introduction to the concept of money, which was it was taboo. We didn't talk
Mm,
about it because my mother didn't, we didn't have a stockbroker. She didn't have a brokerage account. I can't honestly recall if my mother had a checking account. My mother worked hard to provide a good life for us, but we never talked about money. And I'm sure that that is probably the case for many Black households. Money was just something you didn't talk about. From there, I
mm,
think my next experience was in church. I had always heard money is the root of all evil. So I'm like, oh, shoot, well, we don't want none of that trouble. And so I think my first real introduction to investing was I happened to marry a man who understood money and how money works. And right along that time, I was just starting my first teaching job. And so it all came at me, pretty quickly because I had no reference before that point. And neither one of those were good sources, neither one of those, because my
mhm.
job didn't offer much support and I wasn't in alignment with the man I was married to. So the financial piece there, even though I was introduced to the concept of investing, it did. I heard it, but I didn't really understand it. It wasn't until much later, after many
Wa-
mistakes.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. And just to piggyback off of that, thank you for being so transparent, ladies, about your experiences. I will say this. Let me go back before I get myself in trouble. I will say that when I was very young, that when I got my first job, because it was like when you turn 16, you were gonna work. Okay.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
mom was like, 16, we getting you a job. Got me a job. She was my co-person on my checking account. And she started me the idea of saving. So I want that was how I was introduced to saving. And then I remember my grandmother chiming in talking about, well, if you want something, you gotta save for it. I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
okay. You know, and
Mm-hmm.
then it wasn't until later, until I had my first real job, that where they were offering 401k, that I began to learn about investing. So I will say again, like Sandra said, we didn't talk about money in our household. You definitely didn't ask for none, okay?
Right.
And then when you
That's
became of
right.
age, you became of age, you had to get a job. But
Right.
beyond that piece about investing and stuff like that, I will say this though, real quickly. In middle school, I had a history teacher who had a fascination with teaching us how to read stocks in the newspaper.
Wow.
Didn't know how that was going to apply to my life later. Really didn't appreciate it until I thought about back. Said, why were we doing that? This isn't a class for that. But and now that I've had that experience, even still later, I think about that. I understand the idea of stock markets, but I did not understand the idea of investing until I had that job where I had to put my own money in there and leave it and don't touch it. So
Right.
that and so fast forward to today, and been like I said when we were off the podcast, it's been trial and error, and eventually got
Mm-hmm.
into having it managed so I can help myself. Because when the stock market dipped, I don't know about y'all, was it about 2008? Was that about right, Sandra? When it
That's
dipped,
right. 2008.
and when it dipped, oh, I almost panicked, fell
Right.
out.
I
And
know.
that's the worst thing you can do. Do not panic sell. But thank God for a great teacher. Who is the teacher? We should shout that teacher out. Thank goodness for a good teacher who introduced that to you. That was a gift.
I
I,
think
I,
they should teach that in school. I think it should be a requirement to
They
understand.
should. I don't think it's an accident that they don't. I don't think that's by accident. I
You're right.
think that that
no,
is totally by design. We could teach them, they can mandate a curriculum for anything they want. Isn't it curious that that's not a part of it?
Right.
Emotional intelligence is not a part of
Mm-hmm.
the necessarily a part of the curriculum. It's coming along, but certainly not financials. Yeah,
Because we're
you,
always behind.
that's right.
Our
That's
community,
right.
are the last to know.
mm,
Mm-hmm.
I will say
Mm-hmm.
this and help me out. Who said this, ladies? It is, what did he say? Don't quote me the exact word. It's crazy. They say it in so many words. It's crazy to depend on other folks to teach your children.
That's right.
That's
Absolutely. That's coming from a teacher.
that's right.
And they
Mm-hmm.
were specifically talking about us in the African American community sending our children to schools that don't necessarily represent us
That's
Mm-hmm.
right.
and expect them to teach us for everything that we need to know.
Right.
That's yep.
So I don't want to misquote, and if anybody's listening to this and watching this later, welcome, welcome. And if you know who said it, please put it in the comments. I appreciate it, and forgive me if I misquoted, but that was the gist of what they were saying. Okay.
But Danny, that was so effective because do you know that less than 60, I want to say it's either 40%, I want to say it's about 40%, certainly not 50% of Black nothing invested in the stock market. So the strategy was effective. If you want to
Mm,
keep a population of people behind, keep them ignorant. And I don't
Right.
mean ignorant as in, foolish. I mean just uninformed. It has certainly been effective.
It,
right.
now that I think like with me, I've always worked hard, but and know how to make money, like with my gifts and talents and the hustle part. But what sense does it make to work that hard and not know how to make your money work for you?
That's right. Absolutely. That's a part of it too, because as long as they can keep us on the in the rat race, on that hamster wheel, you are distracted. Not only are you not going to be paying attention to your finances, you aren't going to even have enough energy to engage really fully politically because you are busy with hustle, survival.
Mm.
Many people are still living paycheck to paycheck. That's a headache and a hassle. So
Yeah.
those people, and I can understand why many, particularly Black women who are often head of the house, I can
Hmm.
see why they are bogged down with just surviving and paying the bills and getting up to do it again. She doesn't even believe that she has time or the resources for investing. Girl, we're trying to get groceries. We're
Right.
Right.
trying to buy eggs.
I agree with you so much. And they're too stressed out. You can't your mind cannot be intentional.
Oh,
That's
say
right.
that. Say that. Absolutely. Oh, this leads me into what I was going to ask you about next, Sandra. So, having said what you just said, did that inspire you to start speaking publicly about money and investing, particularly for Black women, or what sparked that interest in Sandra to say, you know what, I'm gonna jump out here on YouTube and I'm gonna do the thing.
You know what, Danny? And I would love to take credit for it. I would love to say, girl, I'm so smart. And so courageous, but that's not it. That's not my
Okay,
story.
okay.
I had retired from teaching. I was lucky enough that I had a profession that still provided a pension. So, because girl, if it had been up to me, God only knows. I mean, I was wise enough to save money and put money aside, but I did not really understand how the stock market and investing and how money grew. I didn't understand any of that really. I just knew enough to make sure that I was providing for my future after teaching. And so I was fortunate enough to have a pension. I retired, moved to Mexico, and my daughter was taking a class in trading options, and
Mm,
she was experiencing some success. So I'm watching from the sidelines. I'm like, wait a minute, this little baby is over here making money before she goes to work.
mhm,
So I signed up and took the class. And as I was taking the class, my intention with starting my YouTube channel was simply to share the learning journey. It was never really to teach other women, it was just to share that this is a class I found. It's an interesting way that, maybe I can make some money and I can share the journey. And along the way, Danny, and to be honest with you, it was really a divine thing. It was a vision that I had, and I'm not one of those people who, you dream and wake up and Lord, I just had this magnificent vision to pull this. No, I genuinely had a vision, and I saw 12 women sitting around a table with laptops, and they were all learning to trade and invest in the stock market. And I was so convicted. God said, and for those, I don't know who's a believer and who isn't. And I think there's room for everybody. So if you don't believe like I believe, it's okay. But this is how it came to me. God said, as clearly as I'm talking to you, He said, now you're going to teach this and you're going to teach it for free. I said, oh, wait, I just retired. Teach it for free.
Right.
And I did that. I started out the first year. I shared the journey that I was on and opened up. You could see it. You could go back to the very beginning of my YouTube channel. And there I was on the internet 8 hours a day, learning out loud and sharing with others. And from there, it grew into actually a business. And so I wish I could take credit, but it was truly divine. It was a divine inspiration. And it was birthed out of my desire to just be obedient to God, and He said, share it for free. And that's what I did.
All right. Let the choir say
I'm
amen.
definitely a believer. And if God told you to do it, and I'm glad that you listened to him and was obedient.
Amen. And so am I. That's what I'm like. All right now. Yes, when God orders your step, doesn't He make a way for you?
Yes, he
If
does.
He ordains it, yes. When He ordains it, He makes it happen. Because I couldn't see it. I'm like, wait a minute. First of all, I'm tired. I taught for 30 years. The last thing I want to do is teach. That's the last thing I want to do.
Right.
Right, right, right.
But,
I understand.
it has turned out to be the biggest blessing, for my life, because not only am I learning, and over the last 3 years have I learned so much, but I've been able to learn in community with other Black women. And there's nothing like, let me tell y'all, Black girl magic. You all know I'm preaching to the choir now, because you all know how it is. When we get together, we take anything. I don't care what you give us. We're going to make it bigger. We're going to make it better, and we're going to make it work. And so that's been my experience.
Wow.
Amen. Oh wow.
But
And
you
I
the
know. And then so tell us about your goal. So with your channel, you got into that. So to get the 1,000 Black women.
Yes, that was that, all of it. I promise you, even the name of the channel was not my own thinking. I just thank God for Jesus because I'm probably the most reluctant worker, I'm fully retired. I was like, Lord, I know enough to be obedient, but to be honest with you, I wasn't looking forward to doing that, girl. I was looking forward to sitting on a Mexican beach with some margaritas.
right.
And here the Lord come talking about, you gonna teach this class for free. I said, okay. I've been down that road where I've been disobedient and gotten whooped so good that now I know better. I don't even question when the Holy Spirit speaks to me. I move because I know that is what's best for me. And so, yes, the second step was that the second year we actually made a few coins. So the second year we started out charging just for helping women open up their brokerage accounts. And in the third year, he gave me the inspiration of the 1,000 Black Women Brokerage Account Challenge. And so I was tasked with getting 1,000 Black women to open up a brokerage account. We work primarily with Charles Schwab and Fidelity accounts. And so that's the third leg, that's the third year, and that's what we're working on.
Awesome.
Days, and I want to learn.
You need to come. When I tell you, we meet the second Wednesday and fourth Wednesday of every month for 2 hours. And when beautiful sisters, wonderful, nobody gatekeeps. Everybody brings something to the table. It's a learning community. So I host it, but every sister in there has learned and lived experiences that they bring to the table. We gather information. We have a resource bank. It's a beautiful collaboration. And again, when you give Black women something, they're going to multiply it and make it better.
All right. And put some sass to it. Okay.
That's
Uh,
right.
Oh, I love it. And so you mentioned it's the second and fourth. Where can they find that information, Sandra?
You can go to my YouTube channel, From Lack to Legacy. Lack to Legacy across all social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. If you go to the YouTube post page, it used to be the community tab, but now it will say post.
mhm.
Anywhere there, you will see a link where you can join the community.
All right. We heard it here for us and who are in investing or want to share this information for those who want to get some sisters to get involved in investing. Go to From Lack to Legacy, her YouTube channel. I'm super excited about that. I've sat in on a couple of your sessions, Sandra. Just absolutely wonderful people. You have the spirit for it. Okay, you definitely have the spirit because when you're teaching individuals and you're talking to people, there's a certain spirit that resonates with um, with people, and you definitely have it, Sandra. So kudos to you for following what God has given you, already given you the gift and talent to do. Now He's expanding your territory.
Yes,
I definitely feel blessed. Yeah.
I just found it.
Hey, Regina
Yes.
wasn't playing,
And you
y'all.
can, and if you Regina, listen, and if you can't find me on any of those, you can always email me. Same thing, from lactolegacy@gmail.com. I'm happy to help, happy to connect, with sisters. I mean, I would help anyone because, a teacher, that's just the nature of teaching. But my heart is really with Black women
Yeah.
because we have given so much. We've been the workhorses. The US has used our labor, has used our talents and our gifts and given very little back to us. And again, I kind of agree with that statement. We don't have to always look outside of ourselves. We have it, y'all. We have everything we need. The internet is the great equalizer.
Yes,
Amen.
absolutely. Thank you for that. And just for saying that, Miss, I'm wondering. So, me and Regina, we talk about social work and things that we're passionate about to serve those that in our community. So, typically, typically when you're a social worker, that doesn't mean that this covers all social work backgrounds, but like Regina, we serve socially and economically disadvantaged individuals,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
And
Mhm.
so sometimes, most times finances are often tight.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say to someone who thinks, okay, investing is for them, it's investing is for that sister, that's not for me because I don't have much coin to invest in? What would you say, Sandra?
I would say, sister, get on in the room because that's the way most of us came into the room, thinking. None of us, a few of us in the community, were involved in trading, and so they had some familiarity with the stock market. But for the most part, many of us are mature women in our 30s, 40s, even in our 50s, and some of the women in the community, like with a background that afforded us that kind of information. And so, first of all, I would say, sister, you are not alone. So we don't do money shame. We don't look back at the if a coulda, woulda, shouldas, because all of that is counterproductive. And what I will tell you is that you can open up a Charles Schwab brokerage account along with a Fidelity brokerage account with zero money.
Mm.
You don't even have to have a deposit. You can open those accounts up online. Takes about 5 minutes. You don't even have to fund it, but what it will give you is it will give you access to all of their teaching and learning resources and their investing platform. Particularly, Charles Schwab has a platform called Thinkorswim where you can paper trade or paper invest. You don't need any money. And so, right there, that's the lowest barrier of entry that you could ever really ask for. And that's why I say the internet's the great equalizer. If you
Mhm.
have an internet connection, you can open up a brokerage account in the morning with $0, get access to information free.
I like that. But Sandra, some of the things like with our community is the language barrier with their understanding of some of the terms of investments and the
Mhm.
wording.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I think that can be intimidating, even for myself, because I'm not into. I just know just a little bit.
Yeah.
So
It
sometimes,
can be intimidating.
yeah. it's like the wording you don't understand it. Like, what is this? And
Right.
hmm
Yeah, I understand that. And I think that's why it's important to be in community, because we
yeah,
all feel that way. And I think when you feel that way, then the insecurity creeps in. It becomes so easy to just walk away from it. Well, I'm never
right,
going to understand it because I understand it today. But when you're sitting with 30 other Black women who are saying, girl, I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
yeah,
It takes some of the edge off you. Not alone in it, because when you don't know, doesn't it feel so isolating? It's like I
mhm,
must be the only one that doesn't know this.
right,
No, you are not. You are not. You are not. But I will say this. Not only can you open up those accounts, but they're pretty user friendly.
hmm
YouTube, both Fidelity and Charles Schwab have free YouTube channels where if you don't know, they have made it so easy and so user friendly and the in everyday language that you could start with something as simple as what is a stock.
yeah,
Mm,
Netflix has a beautiful 17-minute video on YouTube called How Does the Stock Market Work? It's
hmm
the best thing
mm.
since sliced bread. 17 minutes. If you got 17 minutes, that is one of the best videos I've seen to date that explains how the stock market works.
okay,
What's the name of it again, dear?
It's it's a Netflix video, so all you have to do is go to your YouTube search bar, put in Netflix, How Does the Stock Market Work?
okay,
Netflix. How does the stock market? How does it work? Oh, that's a saving grace because sometimes we need visual along with the hearing part of it, just to
right,
for it to sink in. Oh, thank
That's
you for sharing that, Sandra.
Yes. And in addition to that, if you get the confidence up to do that, then I would definitely suggest that you reach out to us and get in community. Join the 1000 Black Women Brokerage Account Challenge, because we'll take you through step by step. There's several, we have a program and a package where you can just join for the study sessions. And for most people, that's enough. But if you want some hand holding, like you don't feel confident enough to get online and open up that brokerage account by yourself, the teacher in me is here to help. I can help you take you step by step. That's another level of service where you don't have to do anything. We do it all together. But for the most part, most sisters are able to at least get on, open up the brokerage account, start watching videos, and then you can join us in community. But I want to toss this in here too, because many of us think, well, what's the use of doing that? I don't have any money.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with Charles Schwab, you can start investing with as little as, is it five? I think it's $5. It's either $5 or $10 with what
mm,
they call fractional shares. Yes. You can do it with Fidelity too. With Fidelity, it's even less. You can start Fidelity investing and buying fractional shares with $1. So
All
there,
right.
that, yeah. So that whole thing of I don't know, I don't have enough money, I think is really rooted in fear. And the things that we don't know and we don't understand, of course, are fearful. And it kind of, that fear will immobilize you. Mm-mm, not today. We got you, sister.
I
so
know that's right.
yeah,
Oh, and it's such a blessing.
I get fearful like when some of these accounts they ask for your identification and they ask for, like personal information.
Hmm.
That'd be
I
like,
do too.
with the apps and stuff, you like, I hope they're not gonna steal my information or
I get
stuff.
that. I think that's why we have to work with reputable companies. There are all kind of trading and investing platforms. Moo, Robinhood,
Yeah.
Webull. And the ones that are solely app based, I'm with you. I'm a little leery about doing that kind of stuff on my phone. But
Mm.
Charles Schwab has a physical office in many cities. I know that there's a couple right outside of Chicago, which is where I'm from. You could actually go in and see a person and
Oh.
open up a Charles Schwab brokerage account. Yes.
And,
Mm.
and Fidelity, right? For and for,
Uh-huh.
I've only
Fidelity,
done.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure about Fidelity, you all, if you can walk into their offices, but I know they have physical offices. But I think you may be able to go in and open up a brokerage account. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, because I have seen Fidelity offices and what have you, and the times that I have invested have been online. And I'm with you, Regina, about that. Where's my information going? Because they're
That's
asking you for social
right.
security number and all the things, right?
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
So, but and having said that, and taking financial social work course, one of the things that they talk about is if you're fearful of that sort of stuff, if you wanted to or fearful that somebody's going to take that information, like perhaps misuse it, maybe you want to think about locking your credit.
yeah, I've done it.
Mm-hmm.
I have
So just
put on mine.
okay,
Mm,
okay, just sort of a tip to put out there. You can lock your credit with all three credit bureaus, with TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax.
yeah.
When you
That's right.
Yeah, so that nobody can open up an account without your permission. That you'll have to actually unlock it before they can run your credit report and open any sort of or approve you for any sort of credit card or etc. So that's just a tip for anybody who's afraid that they don't know that something's going to happen. So that's
That's
what
a
else.
good tip, Danny. And actually you are entitled to every year, once a year, you're entitled to a free credit report from each of the three credit bureaus. And I would encourage everybody to take advantage of that. And at least once a year, you should be checking just to make sure that nobody has opened anything or that there isn't anything on there that is incorrect.
Right.
So take advantage. I want to say the website is annualcreditreport.com.
Okay,
And once,
good.
yep, once a year you can get one free from all three credit bureaus. That's another thing that we talk all things money in our learning community. It's not just investing. We talk credit, budgeting. We read books, invest. We have a book club portion. So when I tell you we are serious about getting Black women educated and involved, all you have to do is make the first move.
I like that community. Get
Yes.
support. Hmm.
Yeah,
Doesn't
we
it
need
matter,
that.
Regina? It and just even us having this conversation together,
Right.
it does matter. I think when you see three Black women talking about something, it shows solidarity. It lets other women know that this is important. And if those three can do it, I can do it.
Right.
And most definitely you can do it because I told you my experience. I was like, I don't trust you with my money. I ain't doing that. And I have come a long way.
Right.
But so and just having a conversation. I'm so glad that you mentioned that. So like for us who are social workers or in the helping profession, where you're serving the community, like starting that conversation. Like, how do you
Yeah.
think that you can start that conversation with them? And Sandra, you started off by giving us a tip, a resource for them to go to, that Netflix video that you were just talking about, how the stock market works, if that's something they're interested in doing. So how do you start the conversation? But maybe you around someone or a sister, and you just like, they could possibly benefit from this information if they aren't already invested. How would you start the conversation?
I think everybody wants to. Well, I won't say everybody, but I don't know. I know very few people who want to work forever. Nobody wants to work forever. So my conversation with any sister is, do you want to work harder or do you want to work smarter? Now, if you, but and that means, I have to kind of step back a little because most of us, I think Regina said this, we were all taught to work hard. We were told that if we worked hard, twice as hard, we will have to work twice as hard to get half as much as, mainstream America. And so I usually start there. Sister, you have already been working hard. I know that. I don't even have to know your name to know you got the same messaging that I got as a young woman, which
Right.
was you need to be able to take care of yourself. You need to be able to work. You need to be able to produce. But what they didn't tell you was that not only should you be working, your money should be working. So I start there. Yep, you're going to work, but I don't want you to work for forever. I want you to do this and achieve the life of your dreams. And the way you do that is not by saving. You will never save yourself to wealth. You can never work. You can never trade enough hours of your life in terms, to a job, even to a business. Enough. You can never put in enough hours that you will work yourself to wealth. You must put your money to work. And so I usually start right there. Now if you want to just work yourself to death, I can't stop you. But I can show you a way to put your money to work where you won't have to work forever. And you can not only do it for yourself, but then you can leave a legacy. Because all of us generally have a loved one that if we could help, we would help. And so, yeah, I don't want you working hard, and I want to show you how to leave a legacy.
Right. Because
Hmm.
I know, like Danny was saying when she was informed about the investments at work, I was the same way. But now that I'm older, I was like, I wished I would have invested more. I wished I would have started off with more.
Yes.
Hmm.
And
It's
we
like,
have to reach young sisters. That's, while the community is primarily made up of mature women, our goal really should be to reach 20-year-olds because they have the most time.
To
yeah,
reach
You
who,
know,
sweetie? I'm sorry, couldn't hear you a little bit. Are you a little far away?
I'm a day ahead of y'all. It's already
Okay.
Monday here, so it's going to be a little bit of a lag. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yeah, I
yeah,
can hear you now.
Okay. But Danny, I was saying, and Regina, I think our focus, of course we want everyone, but the person who stands to gain the most would be, is that Gen Z, y'all? I don't know the generations. Is it Gen Z or Gen
yeah.
X?
Gen Z, Gen Z.
Gen
Mm,
Gen Z we need to share this conversation with Gen Z. Gen
yes,
Z, the 20-year-olds, because
Hmm.
they are spending money, many, not all, some have gotten the word, but $10. You could put $10, $2,000 and leave it for 20 years, they
right.
stand to gain the most. So I'm also interested in expanding to young people.
Mm. So when you say young people, younger than what age or what age range?
Well, actually, now see, I'm only one person, but God gave me another thing. It's money. It's I'm going to do, and I do this with my grandchildren, where we talk monthly about this. Everything that I talk about with adults, I talk with my grandchildren about once a month. And Regina, I think you said it. They should teach this in school. And if they don't, should we wait for them? Absolutely not. And
Right.
so as this business expands and as my mission expands, I hope to include a component where we talk to children as young. My grandchildren are as young as 8 and 11, and
Hmm.
they definitely understand how money works. They know what money is. They know they want it.
Amen.
and and so they need to understand how it works. And so I think maybe in between there, I'm talking about high school, because you can open up an account. Regina, I think you said it. You had an account in your teen as a teenager.
I just got my daughter.
Yeah.
Mm,
Mhm. That, yeah, absolutely. And you can open up a custodial account for a
That's
youngster under the age of 18 at a investment place. So you can put it in their name, but you'll be the custodian of it until they turn of a certain age where you can hand it over to them. So
yes,
even if you're thinking investing for a younger person, um, that's an option as well.
mm,
right.
and those
Oh.
And
Hmm.
annuity accounts with life insurances.
Hmm.
I wish I would have known about that when I was younger.
Oh, about what life insurance expand? What were you
Like
saying?
how the insurances they grow interest is certain one.
Oh, yep, yep, like index universal life or whole life policies.
Yes,
Hmm. Hmm.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
would have known about those. And I'm
absolutely.
just now learning a whole lot of stuff now. Of course,
Yeah.
I have my pension at work, and my I have a it's called a deferred comp. But I would
Mm-hmm.
have I would have did so much better with my deferred comp if I would have put more money in. Like I had so much apprehension, like Danny said. I was like,
Yeah.
so much
But
get
can
now.
all of those things could be a part of what you would call your portfolio today. But you know what, y'all? It's never too late. That's the next part. It's never too
Mhm.
late. And we're learning about it now. So you have your pension. And for those people who are fortunate enough to qualify for any Social Security, if you have real estate, if you have life insurance, bonds, precious metals, gold, all of that stuff is how mainstream America has been accumulating and perpetuating wealth. They
Yes.
got the
Mhm.
memo. They got the memo. They weren't trying to share with us.
They were trying to keep us stressed out and working hard.
Yes. Girl,
Yeah,
it's nothing
work
but the
those
modern day
jobs.
plantation. It's the
Yeah,
modern day plantation, y'all. Come
yeah,
on.
And
They was beating us with our whips.
mm, so y'all hit something on the head there. So the mindset and not believing the myth that is not for us, right?
That's right.
And so shifting those mindsets and shifting that idea that you can't do it, but yes you can. Just one
hmm
step at a time, right?
That's
yeah,
right.
You get into mindset, Sandra, in your community.
Absolutely. You know we do. Because I wanted and I wanted to add this in earlier when you asked me how would I start the conversation. And a part of it is gratitude. When we think
Mm.
of wealth, we think of abundance and, having enough. And the real truth is, ladies, we do have enough. And that
Mm.
is that is all rooted in gratitude. When you wake up in the morning, you're doing better than some. When you
Mm.
open your eyes, you're doing better than some. The fact
Yeah.
that you can hear this podcast, you can comprehend what's being said in this podcast, that's 4 or 5 things right there to be grateful for. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I have found that when we root our day and our life in gratitude, you begin to look around, and not only are you grateful for those basic things, but you begin to look in other spaces for what can I be grateful for. And that energy it attracts
mm,
abundance.
right,
It's the key, it's the linchpin, it's what sets it off. Because if I'm grateful for water, girl, by the time y'all give me tea, girl, I'm happy. Wait a
right.
minute. What?
Amen.
I agree.
And what you're grateful for, that's what you get more of, right?
Right.
Yes. Gratitude
Need
multiplies
more.
into abundance.
hmm
Yes, it does. I'm so glad that you mentioned that. That is so true. So true. That's one of the first things I think about when I wake up in the morning. This is the day the Lord has made, and I am rejoicing and glad in it. I see it. So I'm with you. I'm with you about gratitude for sure. Oh wow. And so speaking of what the gratitude and being grateful that you can do what you are able to do, and those of us who have hearts and minds to wanted to leave a legacy like to the next generation. What does that what does that look like for you ladies? What does that really mean to you, or what does it really mean?
It's to me, it's like leaving them something in a bank account that they can have something to leverage from, like a good savings account, having the house, real estate. Because a lot of times when our people, when we don't have our funds set up correctly, we don't have the house paid off, we don't have things to give our children when we leave. So, and like Sandra said, the mindset, having the right mindset of home ownership, learning how to, use your money correctly, investments. So that's what I think of.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, Regina. I think it starts with being an example, even if you started late, and I don't even like to use that term. Even if you started later in life, wherever you started from, you're setting an example. The fact that you said, well, we were on this trajectory and we didn't talk about money, or nobody managed money well, If you start, that's the beginning of your legacy. Because
Mm,
now whoever's coming behind you, they can say, well, wait a minute, my mother, my grandmother, my auntie, she didn't start till she was 50. I'm
Mm-hmm.
mm-hmm,
younger. I definitely can do, I can start sooner. So I think setting the example, having a good mindset and speaking it, not just holding on to it, not
mm-hmm,
gatekeeping the information. That's a part
mm-hmm,
of your legacy. Being someone who shares.
Yes.
mm-hmm.
And then passing on what you learned. If you learned about stocks, share that with somebody. Don't keep it. If you learned what an ETF is, tell somebody about it. Even if you can't leave them $1 million. We may not even be in a position that we can leave them something that's going to give them a head start. Knowledge, that's something you have left them, at least the example, knowledge. And then we'll get to the money part, we'll get to the real estate, we'll get to the precious metals and all the other things that you could put in your portfolio. But somebody has to start.
Yeah.
Okay, girl.
I like that.
I love that, and that's one of my mantras. Let's learn, grow, and share together naturally. And that's not something that's always been. Someone pointed out on a social media post that you have to look at the generations. Like, for example, my grandmother's generation, they were the quiet ones. They didn't talk much. They
Yeah.
didn't say much at all. I think it was you, Regina.
The silent generation. Yeah.
Yeah, that was you,
Mm-hmm.
sweetheart. And then my parents' generation, what did you call it? I don't want to misspeak. What did you
Oh,
call it?
generation.
The whole
Silent.
the silent and our grandparents' generation was the what generation?
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. The silent generation. They were quiet. You said they were quiet.
Mhm.
Yeah. The
I thought I remember you breaking down our grandparents and then our parents' generation.
mm-hmm. And
And
then
s-
the
mhm.
boomerang.
Mm-hmm. The boomers.
Yeah. I mean, did I call the boomers? Why am I saying boomer? I'm thinking of the movie. The boom. The
but
D.
but but sort of breaking that cycle from generation to generation and to talk about it like you mentioned, Sandra. Um, and and for me, leaving a legacy also means, and tell me if y'all agree, y'all, leaving a will, okay,
Oh
or
yeah.
some sort of directives in place. I don't tell you how many times I look on, you hear on TV people who have affluent means and didn't have a will when they made their transition,
Yeah.
and then all their stuff is in probate or something similar, or family fighting over it. And it's like you had all of that and you didn't leave
Right.
any sort of
Who was that?
plan.
The King of Soul? Who was that who died? And
It's
Prince
been a
was like
few.
too.
Yeah,
He
been a
didn't
few.
have a will either.
Aretha Franklin stuff. And I think, did they fight over John Amos's money too? I think there are
Yeah,
probably
they
more
did.
examples. Yes, more examples than we care to talk about.
James
And it's,
Brown.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's a part of that legacy that was rooted in money is taboo. You don't talk about it. But just because you don't talk about it doesn't mean you don't plan. You should still be playing. And because all of us got to get up out of here. Ain't nobody coming, ain't nobody going, ain't nobody going to be here forever. And you can't take the money with you. You can't take none of the stuff with you. So we need to plan, which and I'm just going to toss this one out there. In addition to having a will, when you're setting up your brokerage accounts, there's a designation that you can allocate at the time when you open it, and it's called a TOD, transfer on death. So
Hmm.
this way your money doesn't have to go into probate.
Wow.
Everything that is in that account, it can be transferred on death, and you can name your beneficiaries, you can name who you want those proceeds to go to. And so, yeah, we just need to
Oh,
be knowledgeable. That's it.
I like that's great
I,
information.
it is. I didn't know about that. And, let me back up a two. I have heard that even having a will wasn't just enough. So thank you for bringing that up, Sandra. And
Hmm.
having beneficiaries on all your types of accounts, be it your work 401ks, your bank accounts, even if you don't have a will, because maybe that's just not in you to do something like, or have some sort of directive, have beneficiaries on everything so they can walk in your footsteps and go in there You know what I'm saying? And
Mm-hmm.
it can go to somebody as opposed to not having nobody on nothing.
Yeah.
That's because the last thing you want is the state. Now, if you think you don't have a will, or you have a will, because if you don't do anything, the state will step in and tell everybody exactly where all your assets are going to. And that's the last thing you want is for the state to step in. And Danny, I have to say this. I know you said it at the beginning. I am not a financial advisor.
Yep.
I'm I'm just a black woman who picked up a book and decided I was going to do better with my money. And I try to share, but you want to check that out. When you open up your accounts with Schwab or Fidelity or Vanguard, you now have a stockbroker. Those people now work for you. Ask
Mhm.
them these kind of questions. They can advise you on how you can code that account in the event that you pass on what would be, and there are many designations you can do, but don't neglect that. If you haven't done it, ladies, get on it today.
Ain't
Yeah.
that the truth? You touched on this. Thank you for reiterating that we none of us are claim to be financial advisors, folks.
Right.
We're just going by
None.
experience and want us all to thrive. Okay,
Yeah.
so do your due diligence and what works best for you.
Mm. Now,
Uh,
it get into crypto. What you think about that, Sandra?
I'm Warren Buffett said, and since he is so wealthy, I'm gonna kind of roll with Warren Buffett said. Warren Buffett said, "Don't invest in anything you do not understand." And
Okay.
s- and total transparency, because I've said this out on my YouTube channel, I do have cryptocurrency in my portfolio. I have a bit of Bitcoin, but I'm not heavily leveraged in um, cryptocurrency. One, because I can't understand it all. And
Hmm.
so I do invest in what I understand. And
Okay.
so, but I didn't want to miss out, so fear of missing out made me buy a little bit, and I'm pretty pleased with it because my return, I think the last time I looked, even with this recent dip, I think I was up almost 50, 60%. It's been sitting there for a while and it's not a lot. But if you got $1,000, a couple $1,000, and you're prepared to you in a position where you can lose it, because you can lose on any investment. Let's be clear. Even the most secure investment bonds, you can still lose some of your capital. So I don't invest any money I'm not prepared to lose. And so I didn't put a lot over there, but yeah, I would say
hmm,
get educated, but I
okay,
don't think it's going anywhere.
for sure, for sure. Which leads me to talk about okay. So you said that. So cryptocurrency, typically, from what I've seen, it is low low entry, right? Meaning you don't have to have a whole lot of money. You can buy, depending on the crypto, a whole lot with your dollar can go with. What are some other sort of avenues that you might um, talk about or put out there for people to look into? Maybe they're like, well, what if I don't want to do the stock? I don't want to do crypto. What are some other some first steps that they could take to start learning about what they can get into or what they're willing to get into? You touched on it, getting educated.
Yeah. And I would certainly start there. I would start with getting educated. Then I would say that everybody should have some sort of budget that you're
Hmm.
working from, a monthly budget, where at least you understand how much money is coming in, how much money is going out. That is a pillar. Then I
Right.
would say, yeah, everybody should have some form of high yield savings account, or because you should ideally have between 3 to 6 months of emergency savings, 3 months of expensive. If all heck broke loose, you should be able to survive for 3 months. If you lost your job, you suddenly got sick, anything. That's a goal. I get it. If you live in paycheck to paycheck, 3 to 6 months sounds like pie in the sky. But at least saving a week's worth of wages, or you gotta start start somewhere. So I would also say a high yield savings account. You can open many of those up with very little capital investment. You can open up a high yield savings account with as little as $10. There's some really good ones. Marcus has one. Um, American Express has one. Ally Bank has a high yield savings account, and they pay more than if your money was just sitting in a checking account or a traditional savings account. Again, you can open up a high yield savings account. And then from there, if you aren't interested in investing in stocks, because that does require that at least you understand what the company does and understand how their financial statements read if they're worth investing in. You could always start with an index fund, an ETF, where instead of buying one stock, having to know what that company does and how they're performing, just buy everything in the stock market. An ETF like VTI would give you total market exposure. I think it's about 3,600 stocks in that ETF. If that sounds like that might be too big a leap, they're bonds. Bonds are a little safer. And I say that because again, all investments can lose money, but bonds aren't nearly as volatile. There's CDs. There's so many ways that, and you don't have to know a lot to get into many of those things. Yeah, I would say the most complicated would be trading options. That's pretty complicated. You need that learning curves. That's pretty steep. Stocks could be challenging, trying to pick the right companies, but yeah, start being educated, get a budget, open up a high yield savings account, get 3 to 6 months of living expenses put away if you can, but start somewhere, and then you can go from there. CDs don't pay a lot in terms of interest and yield, but it's a safe place to park your money. And get with somebody who understands. Get with some black folks. I prefer. It's just who I love. It's who I serve. But find somebody who's willing to talk to you about how money works.
Yeah,
Mm, that's the truth.
that's
And
advice.
because there's a lot of mistrust around, we know historically there's a lot of mistrust around financial systems and people just based on our history, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
helping Black women feel safe and to come to your community, Sandra, where you embrace to ask the questions, to look for yourself, talk about experiences, and nobody is shamed for what they don't know, because we don't know
Mm-mm,
it all, you
On
know.
mm-mm.
language.
Right, right,
Yeah.
and not being afraid to say, "Excuse me, what that mean?" you know, absolutely. So I encourage you, those who are
And Danny,
listening.
I taught kindergarten, so you can ask me the same question 30 times. This is my life. I lived that for 30 years. You can ask me the question over and over again. It does not bother me one bit.
And I love it. You've been given that gift of teaching, and that's a blessing, because it takes patience. It absolutely takes patience, to do that. So I encourage anyone listening, any Black woman, if you know of a Black woman, you're a Black woman, anyone you feel like who could benefit from this information, share it. We're all about the sharing. Ain't no,
Yeah.
I've heard this expression. Ain't no stingy energy here. Okay.
But
I like
no,
that.
So no stingy energy, cause I'm like you, Sandra. I ain't gatekeeping nothing, cause I guess what? I don't want nothing to be gate kept from me.
right.
That- yeah, and that's not how you get blessed. You cannot get blessed with a closed hand.
Amen.
You can't receive with a closed hand. We ain't hey, y'all.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Oh goodness, this has been a rich and wonderful conversation about money. I encourage everyone listening to get in community. From Lack to Legacy is where I would encourage you to start. And but if not, take perhaps some of the tips that we talked about today and start investing for yourself. Look into it for yourself. You never know. And again, we're not financial advisors. We're just sharing things that, tips perhaps for you to look into. Always do your due diligence, like Sandra say on her channel. Don't listen to folks on the YouTube.
Mm-mm.
Do your research. So, anything you want to add to this, Miss Regina?
Now, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed learning from Sandra, and I'm definitely going to check out her group, and so I can learn. Like she said, it's never too late.
No.
Absolutely is. Never too
And
late.
we
What you
are
say, Sandra?
I said it's never too late, and we are never too full. We are never too busy to take another sister. And I don't mean in a condescending way, like I'm gonna teach you. No, it is a this. You've all had this experience. You ever had a piece of fruit that was so good, and you just want to tell somebody, "Girl, this plum is so sweet. Get this. Go get those plums. Go get you some of that watermelon. It was so good."
Mm-hmm.
That's the spirit of, I think, this energy here today. Danny, the fact that you two ladies put your time and energy into sharing with the community, and that you were gracious enough to invite me in to share this time with you. It's the same way we share good fruit. It's the same way we share any good thing that we've learned. It's that sharing spirit. So thank you, Danny, and thank you, Regina, for creating this space.
Yeah.
Oh, you're welcome. It
Thank
makes me want. Yes, yes. I thank you for bringing that spirit, Sandra, that you always do, and having said what you just said. How we say it in church? Let the church say, "Amen."
Amen.
you.
Like
Yeah,
my grandbaby say, "Yay, man."
yeah, man. I love it, grandbaby. That is so cute. Well, again, like I like to say on my channel, let us continue to learn, grow, and share together naturally. Hopefully, this information has been a benefit to you. Share it with somebody that you know, and let us know in the comments what you think about this conversation. If you want to add to the conversation, we surely appreciate it. And I encourage you to check out again from Lack the Legacy, her channel, and my co-host, wonderful Miss Regina Michelle, on her channel. And I thank you for watching this channel and all that you do. And until next time, beloveds, bye bye for now.